And away we go, episode 1231 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Monday, January 5th, 2026. It is a big day. If you are a Washington Commanders fan, it is locker room cleanout day, marking the final media availabilities for Commanders players for months. And more importantly, this is a day on which we have a joint season-ending press conference for General Manager Adam Peters and head coach Dan Quinn. That presser is scheduled for 5 p.m. Eastern on Monday. If you could ask AP and DQ one question, what would that question be? Well, the Commanders' awful, dreadful, horrendous, terrible 2025 regular season is over, but it ended with a win. Yay. A 24-17 win at the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday in a game in which the Eagles did not play a ton of key players. The Commanders at the end of the third quarter were down 17-10. They then won the fourth quarter 14-0. An unsuccessful conclusion to Operation Loseout 2.0. An unfortunate end to Olo 2.0. Also on Sunday was the New York Giants with a 34-17 home win over the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday afternoon, and the Cleveland Browns with a 2018 win at the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday afternoon, meaning that the Commanders, had they lost at the Eagles on Sunday, would have gotten the number 5 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. Instead, our team won at the Eagles on Sunday and thus got the number 7 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. Let us hope that the difference between those two spots isn't the difference between trading down with a quarterback-needy team for a haul of picks. I'm not worried about the Commanders at 7 not being able to get a game-changing player. Game changers are everywhere in NFL drafts. The onus is on your front office to find the game changers. My concern is that the Commanders picking as low as 7 will preclude them from doing what I most want them to do with their first-round pick in the 2026 NFL Draft: trade down with a quarterback-needy team for a haul of picks. The Commanders need an infusion of youth and talent and need to replenish their diminished inventory of draft picks. A trade down with a quarterback-needy team for a haul of picks is the quickest way to address those problems. How realistic now is the Commanders doing that? We shall see. And so, the Commanders finished 5-12 with a point differential of -95, third worst record in the NFC, second worst point differential in the NFC. Hello and welcome to this Monday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. Coming up on the show, lots of conversation about the Commanders off the end of one of the most disappointing seasons in franchise history. Heck, maybe the most disappointing season in franchise history. Next segment, reaction to multiple reports over the last few days suggesting that the Commanders could part with offensive coordinator Kliff Kingsbury even if he doesn't get a head coaching job in the NFL's 2026 coaching cycle, including one report saying, quote, "Some in the building say there's been a disconnect between Kingsbury and general manager Adam Peters," end quote. I have a lot to say about this. The following segment, some analysis of the actual game, this 24-17 win at the Eagles on Sunday. Not that there's a lot to take from this game, but there were some things that stood out, and some thoughts from Dan Quinn on the team's 2025 season and on what is next. Monday is a big day. The final exchange of the Dan Quinn postgame press conference on Sunday evening was this exchange between Commanders insider Ben Standig of Last Man Standing on Substack and Quinn.
Not to ask like the contemplative stuff, but what are the next couple weeks like for you? We know you're going to talk with us and Adam tomorrow, but how do you kind of go through that?
There's a lot. It starts with the players first, and then we go through what's called like exit interviews with them, and you can learn a lot. And I think the first thing you do as an off-season begins is, where do you improve internally? And the players, that's why we do it. We find out a lot from them, what we can do better, how we can do things differently. You go through that with players and coaches. We meet with free agents. So there's a lot of internal work that you have to do first, kind of point the mirror at yourself. Then you get into end. But that's what we'll gain from tomorrow. We'll meet with the players. And we call those exit interviews. And so it's not just like, hey, good luck, see you in the off season. We try to be mindful of what are some things that went well, what are some things we need to do differently, and through the years I've learned a lot from players, and in fact most of the really, really important things have been from them. And so I want to listen and then take all the information in and then systematically, put it together. But it does take time when you have a season like this where you're just frustrated, and if I had the hair like you, I'd pull it out, but it's not an option right now. So there's a lot to go through, but it starts with the players, and tomorrow is an important day to do that, and then we'll start, the off-season process, which goes, pretty lengthy.
And the Commanders' 2026 offseason now begins. And also on the show, I'll talk Washington Capitals, Washington Wizards, college basketball, and Navy football. As never forget, this is the podcast that follows Washington, D.C. area sports so that you don't have to. The Caps, they now are just 4-6-4 over their last 14 games. A 3-2 shootout loss to the Chicago Blackhawks at Capital One Arena on Saturday night. And the Caps' two hottest players now are dealing with lower body injuries. So wingers Tom Wilson and Alexi Protas. So the Wizards, they over the weekend had two games. Friday night, a 119-99 win over the Brooklyn Nets at Capital One Arena, improving our Wizards to 6-4 over the team's last 10 games. But Sunday evening, a 115 loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves at Capital One Arena. That was more like it for our rebuilding and tanking Wizards. So we in college basketball over the weekend had losses for Maryland and Virginia Tech, but wins for number 21 Virginia and George Mason. And I will give a proper salute to Navy football for it concluding a 2025 season in which the midshipmen went 11-2 overall with a 35-13 win over Cincinnati in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl at a rainy Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium in Memphis, Tennessee this past Friday. By the way, before we get to feedback, college football news regarding the NCAA transfer portal. A big get from Maryland reports late night on Saturday night that Old Dominion running back Traquan Jones is transferring to Maryland. He had a really good 2025 season for ODU. In fact, Jones for this season is number 2 among all qualified players in the FBS and yards per carry, 7.54. Maryland's rushing offense this season was horrendous. Traquan Jones should help, and this has become a good offseason for Maryland, which has retained a number of key guys from its 2025 team, as opposed to those guys transferring. Among those players, 3 true freshmen and quarterback Malik Washington, and edge defenders Zahir Mathis and Sidney Stewart. ODU's QB1 this season, Colton Joseph, he on Sunday afternoon announced that he's transferring to Wisconsin. Wisconsin's QB1 for this past season, former Maryland quarterback Billy Edwards Jr., he, per reports on Sunday morning, is transferring to North Carolina. And James Madison's QB1 for the last 2 seasons, Alonzo Barnett III, he on Sunday afternoon announced that he is transferring to Central Florida. I know that a lot of people don't like college football and college basketball in this era of the NCAA transfer portal and NIL, but I tell you, the sports do now have off seasons that are a lot more interesting than they had been. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You could email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Feedback on the Commanders off the end of their nightmare of a 2025 season from Keith Hoffman on X. Writes Keith, at this moment, and I'm sure feelings can change from free agency and the draft, but at this moment, I feel worse than I did at the end of the 2013 season. That roster still had Garcon, Jackson, Paulson, Kerrigan, etc. I feel so bad about depth and our outlook right now. Fail to the Skins. Thank you for that, Keith. The Redskins did not actually sign receiver Deshaun Jackson as an unrestricted free agent until April 2014, but I get where you're coming from, Keith. But the big difference between the 2025 Washington team and the 2013 Washington team is the owner, Dan Snyder. He back then was the lead owner. He now is long gone. What we came to know with Dan Snyder was that sustained success was basically impossible. Now there is hope for sustained success. Now we are not there yet in terms of achieving the sustained success, but now there is legitimate hope that sustained success can be achieved. But look, there's no doubt, man. This season was a crushing disappointment of all of the optimism generated by last season. There is no happy face. There is no smiley face that you could put on the Commanders' 2025 season. Email from Thomas in New York. Writes Thomas, Al, I know it won't happen, but DQ should be on the hot seat. Sunday's showing was embarrassing. The team almost lost to the second and third string players, and we all wish that the team had lost. If I'm AP, I'm giving DQ a clear mandate to 1, hire a legitimate defensive coordinator, and 2, have clear improvement, or 3, he will be gone. As always, thank you for all you do. Thank you for the email, Thomas. And to Thomas's point about the win at the Eagles, I mean, this win at the Eagles to me was such an empty, meaningless win. Okay? This was such an empty calorie, sugar high providing win. And I don't even know that the win provided a sugar high for many people who were rooting for the Commanders to win. I mean, who cares? You know, the Commanders win at the Eagles, an NFC East rival. Like, ooh, you know, who cares? The Eagles didn't even play a bunch of key players. The Eagles treated this game like a preseason game. A special thank you to a great supporter of this podcast, Dr. George Verghese. He has been a very loyal supporter of this podcast during Washington football seasons. He is one of the nation's premier dermatologists. He is a very knowledgeable Washington fan, and operating under his direction is the Mid-Atlantic Skin Surgery Institute of Maryland, which has locations in Waldorf, Maryland, Leonardtown, Maryland, and Lexington Park, Maryland. The Mid-Atlantic Skin Surgery Institute of Maryland focuses on medical skin care, cosmetic procedures, and skin cancer diagnosis and comprehensive care. Call 301-396-3401 or visit midatlanticskin.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Dr. Verghese and the Institute can help you or someone who you care about with any of a number of dermatological needs. If you're dealing with allergic reactions, if you're dealing with acne, psoriasis, or eczema, if you're interested in procedures like Botox, laser hair removal, chemical peels, or smart lipo, which is the latest in body sculpting technology, call 301-396-3401 or visit midatlanticskin.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Also, Dr. Verghese and the Institute offer free skin cancer screenings to anyone considered a new patient, and Dr. Verghese and the Institute offer advanced treatments for skin cancer, including painless and scarless skin cancer treatment. Call 301-396-3401 or visit midatlanticskin.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. For excellent and comprehensive skin care, contact Dr. George Verghese and the Mid-Atlantic Skin Surgery Institute of Maryland and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Well, if you are a regular listener of this podcast, you likely know that I weeks ago started wondering whether we near the end or at the end of the Washington Commanders' abysmal 2025 regular season would get a report or would get reports about Commanders' behind-the-scenes problems about which we had no idea. Now, I wanted it to be the case that there were not behind-the-scenes problems with the team, but things for the Commanders this season have been so bad to where you had to wonder. Heck, you were being naive if you didn't wonder if there were behind-the-scenes problems. Well, we, over the last few days, had multiple reports suggesting that the Commanders could part with offensive coordinator Kliff Kingsbury, even if he doesn't get a head coaching job in the NFL's 2026 coaching cycle. NFL insider Diana Rossini of The Athletic, she in a piece that came out on Saturday morning, had this, quote, Commanders coach Dan Quinn is expected back for the 2026 season, though changes to the offense and the defense remain possible after Washington has slumped to a 4-12 record. Quinn took over defensive play calling from Joe Witt Jr. in early November, and Washington has also had conversations about potentially moving on from Kingsbury, even if he doesn't get a head coaching job. Some in the building say there's been a disconnect between Kingsbury and general manager Adam Peters. When was the last time we were watching to see if an offensive coordinator was going to get fired while he was also preparing for head coaching interviews? We'll see how this shakes out. The Commanders likely won't make any final decisions until they see how the broader coaching market develops, end quote. Also, a good friend of this podcast, Commanders insider Ben Standing of Last Man Standing on Substack. He had a piece that came out on Sunday morning, had more on the Adam Peters, Kliff Kingsbury situation. Ben wrote that on Friday evening, quote, a high-ranking front office source from another organization texted that Kingsbury might not return regardless of whether he lands another job first, end quote. Ben wrote that a, quote, source familiar with Washington's internal dynamics described the situation succinctly, intriguing theater, end quote. But Ben also wrote this, quote, the idea of personal friction between Peters and Kingsbury feels overstated given their relationship dates back roughly 25 years to their time with the New England Patriots. Alignment, however, is a different question, end quote. And also over the last few days was NFL insiders Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero of NFL Network in an NFL.com piece that came out on Saturday morning having this, quote, after a frustrating 4-12 campaign, the Commanders are expected to retain the football leadership that helped them reach the NFC Championship game last January, including coach Dan Quinn and GM Adam Peters, but other changes could be coming. Quinn took over defensive play calling duties from Joe Witt Jr. in November, and it's likely Washington will have a new DC. Although Witt is a trusted confidant and has worked with Quinn for years, a new defensive voice would make sense, and Washington has done research to that effect. Changes on offense also are possible, though it's not yet clear how or when those could come about. Offensive coordinator Kliff Kingsbury is expected to get head coach interviews and could be headed elsewhere, end quote. So the two reports that most stood out were the ones by Diana Rossini and Ben Standing, who used to work together at The Athletic. Also, Rossini used to work at NBC4 in Washington, D.C. Full disclosure, I called Ben on Saturday afternoon after that Rossini report came out on Saturday morning. But before Ben's report came out on Sunday morning, he actually was working on his report when I called him. I talked to him for a bit about all of this, and what I'll say is similar to what Ben wrote. The idea that there is a disconnect between Adam Peters and Kliff Kingsbury may be overly dramatic, but the idea that they may not be on the same page may well be true. And this was part of Ben's line of questioning for Kingsbury during his pre-practice press conference this past Thursday morning. And on this past Friday show, episode 1230, talked about the back and forth between Ben and Kliff. Here was that back and forth.
Kliff, obviously, we discussed all along, but the injuries just, crushed momentum. But when you look back at choices that you made along the way, maybe whether play calling or how you viewed personnel, whatever, is there anything you look back on and think, okay, maybe missed the mark on something or something you could change if you could kind of do it again?
Yeah, I think when you go through these seasons, it's always best to start with yourself, point at yourself and then figure out what you could do better and then collectively what we could do better. But there's a ton of different decisions I wish we would have made and I would have made and more just like individual play calls than anything. Our style of play was a bit different, like I said, trying to slow the games down, limit possessions, do things of that nature. But yeah, there are a ton of things I wish I would have done better as far as scheme and maximizing players and things of that nature. But that's, an off-season kind of project when we do our self-scouts, self-evaluations.
Sort of to that point, like you've had a lot of success with the system you run going back to college. You are also the guy who runs it more, the no huddle, hurry up, than everybody by a fair margin. What gives you the confidence that in this time of the league with this quarterback, et cetera, that this is the right way to go, kind of the way you've been going?
Yeah, I've seen it done at a high level, whether it's Arizona or here, at a very high level and won games and had a lot of yards, a lot of success in that regard. So I think I'm pretty confident, in that style of play when the pieces are there that you can play at a really high level and it's a very challenging offense to stop.
Okay, as I said on this past Friday show, I have no problem with Kliff Kingsbury's extreme usage of no huddle. That usage last season worked quite well. But, it's not inconceivable that Adam Peters might have a problem with the heavy usage this season, in a season in which the offense has been hit hard by injury. And as I noted on this past Friday show, the Commanders with Kingsbury as offensive coordinator are on an island in terms of no-huddle usage. The Commanders for the 2025 regular season through Week 17 per Sharp Football Analysis were number 1 in the NFL in no-huddle rate, 63.9%. Number 2 was the New Orleans Saints at 22.5%. That is something. Commanders, number 1, 63.9%. Saints, number 2, 22.5%. Now, to me, the Commanders being on an island in terms of no huddle usage is a good thing. I like my team zigging while everyone else is zagging, but perhaps Adam Peters doesn't like this. And this no huddle thing is just one possibility in terms of why there might be a disconnect or a lack of alignment between Adam Peters and Kliff Kingsbury. Maybe Peters doesn't like Kingsbury using shotgun and pistol so much as opposed to having quarterbacks operate from under center. Maybe Peters doesn't like Kingsbury's play calling. Maybe Kingsbury is mad at Peters for his handling of the contract extension negotiations with receiver Terry McLaurin. After all, Kingsbury repeatedly has brought up the lack of not just playing time, but also practice time for the true first-team offense. Remember, one of Kingsbury's favorite phrases, time on task. How many times have we heard that over these last few months? Time on task. Maybe Kingsbury is mad at Peters for assembling what ended up being one of the worst receiving corps in the NFL, although injuries had a bit to do with that. A lot of possibilities for why there might be a disconnect or a lack of alignment between Adam Peters and Kliff Kingsbury. Now, it is notable that only one person, Diana Rossini, has reported that, according to some Commanders employees, there is a disconnect between Adam Peters and Kliff Kingsbury. If she remains the only person who reports this, you do have to wonder if she, as Ben Standing suggested, is overstating this. But, during my phone conversation with Ben on Saturday afternoon, point blank asked him if the Diana Rossini report might be fake news, because there with Washington over the years has been a lot of fake news. And I, over the years, have spoken out strongly against the fake news. But Ben did not say that what she reported was fake news, and she may be totally right with what she reported. We'll see. Information can change. What we know can change. So maybe we'll soon find out all kinds of, legitimate, understandable reasons to be upset with Kliff Kingsbury. But given what we know right now, I am a Kliff Kingsbury fan. I have liked the work that he has done as Commanders' offensive coordinator, and I find the criticism of him by so many fans of the team to be ridiculous. Kliff Kingsbury has been the Commanders' offensive coordinator for 2 seasons. The offense last season was elite, one of the best offenses in the NFL. The offense this season was a middle-of-the-pack offense, despite being ravaged by injury. The offense this season wasn't perfect, but the offense this season was far from the team's biggest problem. Injuries and the Commanders' awful defense were the team's 2 biggest problems. I find it really funny that at the same time, there are these reports that the Commanders could part with Kliff Kingsbury even if he doesn't get a head coaching job in the NFL's 2026 coaching cycle. There also are reports that he is a head coaching candidate for said coaching cycle. I mean, think about that. How bizarre is that? The rest of the NFL likes the work of Kliff Kingsbury, but Adam Peters may not, and some Commanders fans certainly do not. I don't get that. I don't agree with that, again, given the information that we currently have. It's a funny thing with NFL fan bases and NFL offensive coordinators. Every NFL fan base complains about its offensive coordinator, no matter how well he's doing. I remember so well Redskins fans complaining about Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay and Kevin O'Connell during each guy's time as Skins offensive coordinator. I took those phone calls on the radio. How bad does that complaining now look, given how well those guys have done as NFL head coaches? Look, Kliff Kingsbury isn't perfect. No offensive coordinator is, but he, to me, has done a good job as Commanders' offensive coordinator. And given what we currently know, I would love to have him back for a 3rd season as Commanders' offensive coordinator, hopefully with a healthy QB1 in Jaden Daniels, and let them thrive. Let them cook like they did last season. But let's see if there is more to what is going on than we currently know. I also want to say this. So Diana Rossini in her report wrote, quote, "Some in the building say there's been a disconnect between Kingsbury and general manager Adam Peters," end quote. Put aside this alleged disconnect between Adam Peters and Kliff Kingsbury. Rossini references as her sources for this, quote, "some in the building," end quote. With the idea, of course, being Commanders employees. The building, of course, being the Commanders team facility in Ashburn, Virginia. If everything that Diana Rossini is reporting is true, who exactly are these people who constitute, quote, some in the building, end quote? In other words, who are the leakers? And why are these people leaking stuff to the media? Because if that is what is going on here, Commanders employees leaking the team's dirty laundry to the media, that's bad. That is really bad, in addition to the actual dirty laundry. You know, leaking dirty laundry to the media was a staple of Washington with Dan Snyder as owner of the team. We were supposed to be done with that kind of thing. We were supposed to be done with this kind of stuff. If we're already having this kind of stuff in season number 2 of the football operations regime of Adam Peters and Dan Quinn, what are we doing here exactly? What does that say about the culture, about the brotherhood? This is why I really do hope that what Diana Rossini reported is fake news. A disconnect between Adam Peters and Kliff Kingsbury would be bad, but the leaking of the disconnect might be even worse. One more thing. Did you see what Jaden Daniels' mom, Regina Jackson, posted on X on Sunday evening? She quote posted a post from the Commanders with the following, quote, "Headed in the right direction. Let's go. Officially loading JD5/KK Season 3. 2 heart emojis. Hashtag raise hail. Hashtag HTTC. Hashtag HTTR." End quote. So Mama Daniels threw in a hashtag HTTR. Interesting. Regina Jackson, Mama Daniels, very clearly advocating for Kliff Kingsbury to be back as Commanders offensive coordinator. She wrote, quote, JD5/KK, end quote. She didn't have to include Kliff Kingsbury in that post on X. She did include Kliff Kingsbury in that post on X, and my guess is that she did not write that by accident. Nova Fireplace and Stove. It is Northern Virginia's go-to expert for fireplaces. Transform the look and feel of your home and increase its value by visiting Nova Fireplace and Stove in Woodbridge, Virginia, or by visiting NovaFireplaceandStove.com, and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you for $25 off any service. Come in and see Nova Fireplace and Stove's stunning displays, including custom fireplace glass doors and stone refacing options that can completely transform the look of your fireplace from sleek and modern to rustic and cozy. Nova Fireplace and Stove has something for every style, and here's what else Nova Fireplace and Stove offers: gas fireplace service and repair, chimney cleaning and brickwork repair, generator installation, panel replacements and water heater repairs, smoke detectors, security lights, and more. Nova Fireplace and Stove is a family-owned, fully licensed and insured company with over-the-top credentials, a gas and electrical master's licenses, a Class A contractor's license, and a long list of 5-star reviews to back all of this up. Every job includes a free in-home estimate, and for listeners of the Al Galdi podcast, Nova Fireplace and Stove is offering $25 off any service. Just mention this ad. Nova Fireplace and Stove only works in Northern Virginia and thus knows the homes, the codes, and the people. Your satisfaction is 100% guaranteed. That's Nova Fireplace and Stove in Woodbridge, Virginia, or NovaFireplaceandStove.com, and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you for $25 off any service. So the Washington Commanders have concluded going 5-12 in the NFL's 2025 regular season with a 24-17 win at the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday. The Commanders end up with the exact opposite record that the team had for the NFL's 2024 regular season, right? 12-5, from 12-5 to 5-12. Let that sink in. This win at the Eagles came in what was a glorified exhibition game. As I've been saying on the podcast, I am not here to tell anyone how to be a Washington fan. If this win gives you true joy, more power to you, and I mean that sincerely. But personally, I wanted the loss. I know that many of you wanted the loss, and we wanted the loss for the purpose of maximized positioning in the 2026 NFL Draft. I do not believe that this win means anything for the Commanders' 2020 2026 season, especially considering who actually played in this game. And by the way, Commanders head coach Dan Quinn took a big-time chance in having key guys play deep into the fourth quarter of this game. Now, thankfully, it actually appears as if the Commanders in their final game in this season of atrocious injury luck actually did not suffer any serious injuries. But of course, that's not the point. The snap counts for the game were not available as of the taping of this segment early Monday morning, so we'll see how much Quinn played key players. But if you watched the game, you saw key players playing deep into the fourth quarter. Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni, he on the other hand rested a number of key guys, making this a win for the Commanders over Eagles' second and third string players. Now, the Commanders for this game were down to some second and third string players, right? The Commanders for this game, again, were down to their QB3. The QB1, Jaden Daniels, he was inactive for the 10th time in 17 games in the 2025 regular season, as he, of course, had been shut down for the season. The QB2, Marcus Mariota, he was inactive for a second consecutive game of suffering hand and quadriceps injuries in the Commanders' 29-18 loss to the Eagles at Northwest Stadium on December 20th. Your Commanders' quarterback situation for this win at the Eagles was the same as what we had in the Commanders' 30-23 loss to the Dallas Cowboys at Northwest Stadium on Christmas afternoon. The Commanders' starting quarterback was their QB3, Josh Johnson. The Commanders' backup quarterback for the game was Jeff Driscoll, who the team on December 22nd announced as having signed off the Arizona Cardinals practice squad to the active roster. Driscoll, of course, spent last season as the Commanders' QB3. And Sam Hartman, he for this win at the Eagles was the Commanders' QB3. He was a healthy and active, but he was designated as the team's emergency quarterback. The Commanders on December 24th announced having signed Hartman from the practice squad to the active roster, but the team again had Driscoll ahead of Hartman. Josh Johnson in this win at the Eagles did do some good things, but this happened with Nick Sirianni resting a number of key guys. The Eagles defensive players who were active but did not play in this game included cornerbacks Cooper DeJean, Adoree Jackson, and Quinyon Mitchell, safety Reed Blankenship, and linebacker Zach Bond. The Eagles' secondary especially was a shell of what the unit normally is, but of course the Commanders were a shell of what they were supposed to be. The good from Josh Johnson, he quarterbacked a Commanders offense that went 6 for 11 on third downs, 3rd and 7 for the Commanders at their 38 with 12:19 left in the second quarter. Johnson had a 25-yard shotgun completion to receiver Terry McLaurin. 18 of the 25 yards were air yards, and Johnson on the play took a quarterback hit from interior defensive lineman Ty Robinson. 3rd and goal for the Commanders at the 2. Johnson had a 2-yard offset I formation play-action touchdown pass to tight end John Bates with 9:35 left in the fourth quarter on a nice touch pass by Johnson. Also, Johnson was a major factor as a runner. 9 carries for 45 yards and a touchdown. 2nd and 9 for the Commanders at the Eagles' 24 with 4:41 left in the first quarter. Johnson had a 13-yard shotgun scramble. 1st and 10 for the Commanders at the Eagles' 49 with 23 seconds left in the second quarter. Johnson had an 11-yard shotgun scramble. 3rd and 7 for the Commanders at the Eagles' 11 with 4:51 left in the fourth quarter. Johnson had a 7-yard shotgun scramble. 3rd and goal for the Commanders at the 1. Johnson had a 1-yard under center play action boot scramble for a touchdown with 2:32 left in the fourth quarter. The bad from Josh Johnson, he completed just 14 of his 22 pass attempts, so that works out to a completion percentage of just 63.64. He threw for just 131 yards, so at a yards per pass attempt of just 5.95 and a yards per completion of just 9.36. He committed 2 turnovers, the 2nd and 7 for the Commanders at their 24 with 2 minutes left in the second quarter. Johnson on an under center play action drop back on which he was heavily pressured was intercepted by edge defender Jalix Hunt, who dove in front of the target receiver Deebo Samuel Sr. Now, this was not a good throw by Johnson. But to me, Debo shares in a sizable portion of the blame for this pick. Debo just stood there flat-footed, did not come toward the ball. Hunt caught the ball at the Commanders' 22, did not generate any yards on the return. Also, 1st and 10 for the Commanders at their 42 with 10:57 left in the third quarter. Johnson had a lost fumble off failing to catch a shotgun snap from center Nick Allegretti. The fumble was recovered by edge defender Jalix Hunt at the Commanders' 28. And then there were the timeouts. The Commanders called all 3 of their second half timeouts by the time there was 10:24 left in the fourth quarter. 2 of the timeouts were called while on offense. So those timeouts came with 10:57 left in the third quarter and 10:24 left in the fourth quarter. Yes, this was a glorified exhibition game, okay? But if you're talking about proper timeout management, burning all 3 of your second half timeouts by the time there is 10:24 left in the fourth quarter of a close game is criminal timeout management. And I can only assume that the burning of the 2 second half timeouts on offense was due to Josh Johnson's lack of playing time and lack of familiarity with the offense. I mentioned the depleted nature of the Eagles secondary. How about this? Commanders receivers drew 6 penalties by Eagles defensive backs. I don't know that I'd ever seen that before. One team's receiving corps drawing 6 penalties by the opposing team's defensive backs in a regular season game. Terry McLaurin, in his 6th game back of having missed 7 of the Commanders' previous 8 games due to a twice-injured quadriceps, had 4 receptions for 57 yards on 4 targets and drew 4 penalties. 2 5-yard defensive holding penalties, a 4-yard defensive pass interference penalty, and a 32-yard defensive pass interference penalty. Deebo Samuel, he had 2 receptions for 20 yards on 5 targets. He drew a 29-yard defensive pass interference penalty. He also had 2 carries for 1 yard and a fumble that he recovered. And Treylon Burks, he had 2 receptions for 12 yards on 4 targets, and he drew a 23-yard defensive pass interference penalty. Commanders receivers drawing 6 penalties by Eagles defensive backs. But while we're talking penalties, the Commanders were guilty of 3 more 5-yard false start penalties, as pre-snap penalties were a major problem for the team this season. The Commanders for the 2025 regular season were dead last in the NFL in fewest false start penalties, 33. Tight end Ben Sinnott, he had 2 receptions for 3 yards on 2 targets, and he committed 2 fourth-quarter second and goal at the 1 5-yard false start penalties. One came with 11:15 left in the fourth quarter. One came with 3:21 left in the fourth quarter. Also, 1st and 10 for the Commanders at their 33 with 11:38 left in the third quarter. Left guard Chris Paul committed a 5-yard false start penalty. The Commanders were without 3/5 of the team's starting offensive line. Left tackle Laramie Tunsil was inactive for a 3rd consecutive game due to an oblique injury, and right guard Samuel Cosme and center Tyler Biadasz are on the reserve/injured list. Your Commanders' starting offensive line for this game was Brandon Coleman at left tackle, Chris Paul at left guard, Nick Allegretti at center, Andrew Wiley at right guard, and Josh Connerly Jr. at right tackle. I do not have a lot to say about the Commanders' defense in this win at the Eagles. This was the 7th game for the Commanders with head coach Dan Quinn serving as defensive coordinator off him on November 10th, having announced having demoted Joe Witt Jr. and having taken over as defensive coordinator. The defense in this game was good, but this happened with Nick Sirianni resting a number of key guys. The Eagles offensive players who were active but did not play in this game included quarterback Jalen Hurts, receiver A.J. Brown, running back Saquon Barkley, left tackle Jordan Mailata, and center Cam Jurgens. Evaluating the Commanders' defense in this game is basically pointless, but the Commanders did hold the Eagles to just 17 points, yards per play just 4.95, and 0 for 3 on 4th down. So the Commanders had a takeaway, an interception by safety Jeremy Reeves in the final minute of the second quarter. A salute to linebacker Commander Bobby Wagner, he had 5 tackles to become just the 3rd player in NFL history with at least 2,000 regular season tackles per Pro Football Reference. So the other players, linebackers, London Fletcher and Ray Lewis. I'll be honest, it's hard for me to get super hyped for Bobby Wagner doing this, given how bad the Commanders' defense was and given that this was only his 2nd season with the team. Bobby Wagner will be remembered far more as a player for the Seattle Seahawks than as a player for the Washington Commanders, okay? But this is a tremendous accomplishment for a guy who, of course, is a slam dunk to be elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We, during Dan Quinn's postgame press conference on Sunday evening, had this exchange between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Quinn, and then you hear a follow-up exchange between Commanders insider Ben Standig of Last Man Standing on Substack and Quinn.
What did it mean to see Bobby get that 2,000?
I was super proud. In fact, it was a cool moment tonight, John, that I asked London to be in the locker room as well. So for only 3 players in the history of our game to have over 2,000 tackles, with Ray and London and Wags now part of it, it's fitting. He's the best tackler I've coached. And so, to have that happen, you could see how important we were for that. I looked at the stat line at the half, and I was not so, okay, let's blitz him. Let's get some more tackles. But in true Wags fashion, he will find a way. He's remarkable in so many ways. I showed the team yesterday, just got his MBA from Howard with a 4.0. Of course he did. Why would he get a B in anything? That's be so un-Wags-like in so many ways. So I was really happy that London was there too, John, because these are 2 guys. I said, man, don't stand too close. These guys will tackle you to the parking lot and the locker room. It's what they do. But it's pretty rare to have those 2 guys together. And so that was important for me to have London. I asked him, please come down early so you could be here from the radio broadcast. And so to see those 2 guys together at different times, different eras, but very cool.
There's no way you could have obviously thought when you first saw Bobby that this would happen. But what you recall, those first thoughts about what he could be?
Well, that was the best trait that I saw, going there to see he was long. And we had some meetings with some of the players this week that were thinking of emerging players. I said, I'd like to show you some of the early practice and training clips of what tackling looks like, because rarely is he out of position, much like the center fielder that knows how to track the ball and go after it. Very rarely does he overrun a play or not in the right space. And he's turned out to be a really good blitzer. And that was something that we didn't do a lot with him early in his career. For the early part. But because of his size and his strength that he's developed, that's also been a really strong part of his game. I don't know if he had any today, but I thought he applied good pressure inside.
All right, going to be interesting to see if Bobby Wagner is back with the Commanders for next season. He is set to be an unrestricted free agent in the 2026 offseason. And Commander special teams in this win at the Eagles. The kicker Jake Moody went 1 for 2 on field goals and 3 for 3 on extra points. And what an odd game for Moody, right? 4th and 5 for the Commanders at the Eagles' 6th with 2:36 left in the first quarter. Moody missed a 24-yard field goal attempt as the ball hit the right upright. The Commanders got no points on a drive that was a 17-play, 74-yard drive that consumed 9 minutes, 48 seconds off the clock. But Moody connected on a 56-yard field goal as time expired in the second quarter. So he blew the chip shot, he blew the bunny, but he made the far more difficult 56-yard field goal attempt. I am open to the Commanders bringing back Jake Moody for the offseason program and for training camp, but they should also bring in competition. The Commanders on November 18th announced having signed Jake Moody off the Chicago Bears practice squad. He, with our team, is 10 for 11 on field goals and 10 for 11 on extra points. The Commanders' lone Pro Bowl player for the 2025 regular season, punter Tress Way, another good game. 3 punts, an average of 53 yards per punt, an average of 46.3 net yards per punt. Receiver River Craycraft had the Commanders' only punt return in the game, a 1-yard punt return in the third quarter. Receiver Traylon Burks had the Commanders' only kickoff return in the game, a 22-yard return of the second half opening kickoff. And mercifully, the Commanders' 2025 regular season is over. Here was the opening statement of Dan Quinn's postgame press conference on Sunday evening.
All right, what's up, everybody? Well, I put this down. For 18 weeks I've been up here, and I'm certain the word that I've said the most is finish. And sometimes we did, and other times we didn't. And it's really important to see that tonight, to see us finish like a super challenging season by the guys, absolutely, I thought, just fighting their ass off. It's been tough. Lost a lot of players to injury and some really just tough moments. And so for me, to see them, it was just cool to see the players who were able to, to battle for one another. And that's what we said this would be about. I'm proud of the team tonight. They fought and they finished. And that's what I was looking for going into it and this, like, the most difficult time. There'll be plenty of time for reflecting, and that's definitely going to happen soon, but I'm in no way in that space right now. And so let's save that conversation for later this week. Promise I'll give you all the time I can, but I'm not there tonight.
Okay, now Dan Quinn later in his post-game press conference on Sunday evening did do at least a little bit of reflecting as we had this exchange between Barry Svrluga, columnist for the Washington Post, and Quinn.
This might fall in the reflective category, but you stood at this lectern at the end of the season in two very different seasons.
Yes.
Does that give you hope that flipped around one year, is it doable to flip around in a single offseason?
Yeah, I'm not there yet, like, reflectively, but I've got high hopes because of the locker room to see so many different pieces in, but over the last 4 weeks, the battle, the fight remained the same. By no means was it clean or turnovers or tackling or any things that I like. But if you have your attitude right and they want to fight for one another, I think that alone is a standard that you have to build a championship program. And no one likes the roller coaster of year up to year down. But seeing that kind of fight for the guys that were able to do that tonight, that's a big deal to me.
And to Dan Quinn's credit, the team did not quit on him this season. We now can say that with certainty. The Commanders did not quit on Dan Quinn in this lost season. Now, I don't throw a parade over that, like you're not supposed to quit, okay? You're supposed to try hard, but we have seen teams quit, okay? This team did not quit, and that does speak well to Dan Quinn as a leader. Things are not going so well for the Washington Capitals. They now are just 4-6-4 over their last 14 games, and the Caps' two hottest players now are hurt. Saturday night, a 3-2 shootout loss to the Chicago Blackhawks at Capital One Arena. The Caps in the NHL's 2025-2026 regular season fell to 21-15-6. A second-line right wing Tom Wilson, he played for just 5 minutes 55 seconds due to suffering a lower body injury, and winger Alexei Protas, he did not play due to a lower body injury. Not good. These guys had been doing really well. The post-game press conference of Caps head coach Spencer Carberry late night on Saturday night began with this back and forth between Caps insider Bailey Johnson of the Washington Post and Carberry.
Spencer, do you have any information on Tom's status and also Alexei?
We'll know more tomorrow, but I don't think it's too bad, but we'll find out more tomorrow.
And Pro? Missing the game tonight?
Pro missed tonight, and it'll be TBD as we move forward.
How much should you see it affect your team when Tom goes down with an injury like that?
It's significant, huge. I mean, he's a big part of our team, not only for the things that he does on the ice, but just from a leadership, bench presence, all the different things that he brings. He's a big part of our group.
Yes, he is. Now, the Caps in this 3-2 shootout loss to the Blackhawks, it did overcome a 2-1 third period deficit, and the Caps did get a very good performance from their number one goaltender, Logan Thompson. He stopped 31 of the 33 shots on goal that he faced. Also, the Caps did a pretty good job in the puck possession battle. They had 34 shots on goal to the Blackhawks' 33. The Caps, per natural stat trick, had 49 5-on-5 shot attempts to the Blackhawks' 57, but included in that was the Caps having 12 5-on-5 high-danger shot attempts to the Blackhawks' 9. But this was another bad game for Caps special teams, just 1 for 2 on the penalty kill and 0 for 1 on the power play. The Caps' 2 goals came from Dylan Strome and Ryan Leonard. Caps top-line center Dylan Strome, he scored an even-strength goal, 4:46 into the first period for his 10th goal in this regular season. Also, he went 13-5 on faceoffs, and he was number 4 on the Caps in 5-on-5 shot attempt percentage for the game per natural stat trick at 55.56. The Caps with Strome on the ice in 5-on-5 situations in the game had 20 shot attempts versus allowing 16 shot attempts. And Caps' third-line right wing Ryan Leonard, he scored a game-tying even-strength goal 11:18 into the third period for his 8th goal in this regular season. And he was number 1 on the Caps in 5-on-5 shot attempt percentage for the game per natural stat trick at 64. The Caps with Leonard on the ice in 5-on-5 situations in the game had 16 shot attempts versus allowing 9 shot attempts. Caps top-line left wing Alex Ovechkin, he had no points and 5 total shot attempts, including just 2 shots on goal. He did have a game-high 4 hits. Not bad for a guy in his age 40 season, but Ovi now has just 1 goal over his last 14 games. He is not scoring goals right now. The Caps as a team aren't scoring goals right now. You look at this stretch of the Caps going just 4-6-4. The Caps over those 14 games have scored 3 goals or less in 11 of the 14 games. So the Caps' healthy scratches for this 3-2 shootout loss to the Blackhawks were defensemen Declan Chisholm and Dylan McElrath. Next up for the Caps, home to the Anaheim Ducks, Monday night at 7. The Washington Wizards, they on Sunday evening had a chance to notch their best 6-game stretch in a regular season since winning 6 consecutive games in January 2023. The Wizards on Sunday evening, however, did not win. 2 games for our rebuilding and tanking Wizards over the weekend. Friday night, a 119-99 win over the Brooklyn Nets at Capital One Arena. The Wizards led for all of the second, third, and fourth quarters and won for the 4th time in 5 games and improved to 6-4 over the team's last 10 games. But Sunday evening, a 141-115 loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves at Capital One Arena in a game in which the Wizards trailed for all of the second, third, and fourth quarters. So the Wizards in the NBA's 2025 regular season now are 9-25. They remain without Keyshawn George. He now has been out for 5 consecutive games due to left hip flexor soreness. Also, Cam Whitmore, he now has not been available for 9 consecutive games. This due to upper extremity deep vein thrombosis. But back on Sunday evening was Corey Kispert. He returned from a 5-game absence caused by a left hamstring strain. Kispert got injured in the Wizards' 126-109 loss at the Charlotte Hornets on December 23rd, a game in which he returned from a 10-game absence caused by a right thumb injury. Kispert in this loss to the Timberwolves in 18-19 off the bench had 13 points. He went 2 for 5 on threes, 2 for 3 on twos, and 3 for 3 on free throws. He did have no assists versus 3 turnovers. Also, Tristan Vukcevic, he in this loss to the Timberwolves on Sunday evening returned from a 1-game absence caused by illness. So 2 very different defensive performances by the Wizards over the weekend. The win over the Nets on Friday night, the Wizards' defense was great. They held the Nets to just 99 points, just 6 for 29 on threes, and just 28 for 57 on twos, and totaled 10 steals and generating 16 Nets turnovers. But the loss to the Timberwolves on Sunday evening, the Wizards got destroyed in the paint. Now, they held the Timberwolves to just 11 for 37 on threes, but allowed the Timberwolves to go 44 for 61 on twos and getting outscored in the paint 76-48. And the Wizards got worked by Anthony Edwards. He in just 30 minutes, 10 seconds as a starter, had 35 points, 6 rebounds, 4 steals and 3 assists versus 4 turnovers. He went 6 for 10 on threes, 8 for 11 on twos, and just 1 for 4 on free throws. That's the thing. The final score could have been worse. The Timberwolves went just to 20 for 27 on free throws. So also 2 very different rebounding performances by the Wizards over the weekend. The win over the Nets on Friday night, the Wizards out-rebounded the Nets 51-33, but the loss to the Timberwolves on Sunday evening, the Wizards got out-rebounded 51-35. Their 3 starting front court players, Alex Sarr, Bilal Coulibaly, and Chris Middleton, combined for just 9 rebounds. But Sarr and Coulibaly were good in the win over the Nets on Friday night. Alex Sarr, in 28-38 as a starter, had 19 points, 4 blocks, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists versus 1 turnover. He went 1 for 2 on threes, 7 for 13 on twos, and 2 for 2 on free throws. Bilal Coulibaly, he in 29-10 as a starter, had 11 points, 8 rebounds, including 3 offensive boards, 4 steals, 4 assists versus 2 turnovers and 2 blocks. He went 0 for 1 on threes and just 2 for 7 on twos, but also 7 for 8 on free throws. So also, the Wizards in the win over the Nets on Friday night got big performances from 2 reserves in Justin Champagnie and Marvin Bagley III. Justin Champagnie in 24-36 off the bench had 20 points, 7 rebounds, including 4 offensive boards and no assists versus 2 turnovers. He went 2 for 3 on threes and 7 for 9 on twos, so did not attempt a free throw. Marvin Bagley, he in just a 16.52 off the bench had 12 points, 8 rebounds, and a game-best tying plus-minus rating of plus 18. He went 5 for 5 from the field, all twos, and 2 for 2 on free throws. But still way too many turnovers by the Wizards, so they committed 19 turnovers in each of these games over the weekend. Next up for the Wizards are games on back-to-back nights, home to the Orlando Magic, Tuesday night at 7, and at the Philadelphia 76ers, Wednesday night at 7. Let's talk college basketball. Are we already at a point at which this is a lost season for Maryland? That may sound ridiculous given that there's so much of the season left to be played, but Maryland may have an interesting choice to make with the team's best player, 6'9" Texas A&M transfer Pharrell Payne. So the Terrapins in the 2025-2026 regular season fell to 7-7 overall, including 0-3 in the Big Ten, with a 64-54 loss to Oregon at Xfinity Center in College Park, Maryland on Friday night. Pharrell Payne did not play for a 3rd consecutive game, this due to a right knee injury that he suffered in Maryland's 101-83 home loss to then number 2 Michigan on December 13th. This is the 2nd stint in this regular season of Payne being out due to injury. Who knows for how long he'll be out, and so you got to wonder if the wise course of action just might be for Payne to not play again this season, take a medical red shirt, and be back for next season, as Maryland has a highly touted recruiting class coming in, a recruiting class led by Baba Oladotun, a consensus 5-star recruit from James Hubert Blake High School in Silver Spring, Maryland. Maryland with Pharrell Payne was so-so. Maryland without Pharrell Payne is overmatched. The Terps' largest lead in this loss to Oregon was a mere 2-point lead in the first half. The Terps trailed for 36 minutes, 43 seconds of the game's 40 minutes, and the final score could have been worse. Oregon went just 13 for 21 on free throws. Maryland's offense was terrible. The Terps scored just 54 points, went just 7 for 35 on threes, and just 11 for 30 on twos, and had just 7 assists versus 10 turnovers. So this was the opening exchange of the postgame press conference of Maryland head coach Buzz Williams late night on Friday night.
Buzz, from your perspective, what led to the inability to shoot from the floor today?
Well, I always give credit to coach and his staff and their team. Nothing that we were trying to do was easy. I thought a lot of the things that we were trying to accomplish offensively, I would judge them as the right things to do. We didn't shoot the percentage that we need to shoot, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it was what I would call a red light shot. I thought we shot a lot of green light shots. We just didn't make them. But I thought the momentum of some of the things that we're trying to accomplish, I understand the results and how we'll be judged. But I thought within the process, our staff was really good. I thought our preparation was as good as it has been all year long. I thought our guys understood what was required. I thought their spirits were excellent.
Maryland's defense in this loss to Oregon was mixed. The Terps held Oregon to just 5 for 16 on threes and generated 14 Oregon turnovers, but the Terps allowed Oregon to go 18 for 31 on twos and getting outscored in the paint 32-12. Maryland's leading scorer was 6'7" Texas A&M transfer Solomon Washington. He in 37-31 as a starter had 17 points, 12 rebounds, including 5 offensive boards and 2 blocks. But he went just 1 for 4 on threes and just 5 for 10 on twos. Did go 4 for 5 on free throws. Next up for Maryland, home to Indiana Wednesday evening at 6:30. A nice bounce-back outing for number 21 Virginia. It in this regular season improved to 12-2 overall, including 1-1 in the ACC with a 76-61 win at NC State on Saturday in a game with a start time of 11 a.m. Eastern. This win came off the Cavaliers' 95-85 triple overtime loss at Virginia Tech this past Wednesday afternoon, New Year's Eve afternoon. UVA for this win at NC State did remain without a key player in 6'3" North Dakota State transfer Jakari White. He did not play for a third consecutive game due to a wrist injury, but this was a dominant win over an NC State team that came into the game 10-4 overall in this regular season. UVA never trailed, led by as many as 27 points. That lead was in the second half. UVA's defense was great. The Cavs held NC State to just 61 points, just 5 for 20 on threes, and just 13 for 30 on twos. UVA shot well from the field. The Cavs went 13 for 33 on threes and 13 for 19 on twos. It did have 14 assists versus 14 turnovers, but UVA out-rebounded NC State 36-24. UVA's leading scorer was 6'7" Toledo transfer Sam Lewis. He had just 25.05 as a starter, had 23 points and a game best plus-minus rating of plus 23. He went 5 for 9 on threes and 3 for 3 on twos. Did go just 2 for 4 on free throws and did have 1 assist versus 4 turnovers. But this was a bounce-back performance by Lewis, who in UVA's triple overtime loss at Virginia Tech in 23-38 off the bench went scoreless and had a game-worst plus-minus rating of minus 27. During UVA head coach Ryan Odom's post-game press conference on Saturday afternoon at this exchange.
Yeah, Ryan, Sam Lewis matches his career high today. Why was he such a focus in your offense when he really hasn't been a first option very often this year?
Yeah, I mean, we don't always have a first option, quite honestly. I mean, we do have a leading scorer. Everywhere I've coached, it's all about the open guy's the go-to guy. And certainly we run plays for specific guys at times, but it's more about moving the ball will find you, and it's your turn. And Sam was ready tonight. His teammates found him, and he knocked it down. We have tremendous confidence in Sam and his ability to make shots and make the right play.
And he did those things in this game. Next up for Virginia, home to Cal, Wednesday night at 9. Virginia Tech, it followed up the big triple overtime win over Virginia with a loss. So the Hokies in this regular season fell to 12-3 overall, including 1-1 in the ACC with an 81-78 loss at Wake Forest on Saturday afternoon. Now, Tech does remain without 3 key guys. The 6'8" Toby Lowell did not play for a 9th consecutive game due to a left ankle injury. 7-foot true freshman Antonio Dorn of Germany, he did not play for a 3rd consecutive game due to a back injury. And 6'5" Tyler Johnson, he did not play for a 2nd consecutive game due to a left ankle injury. Tech overcame a 10-point first-half deficit, but the Hokies' largest lead was just 4 points. So the Hokies trailed for 30-36 of the game's 40 minutes. Tech had a mixed game defensively. The Hokies held Wake to just 7 for 24 on threes, but allowed Wake to go 23 for 43 on twos and getting outscored in the paint 40-24. Tech went 15 for 23 on twos. That's good, but the Hokies' offense otherwise was bad. Just 10 for 30 on threes, just 18 for 25 on free throws. 15 assists versus 19 turnovers. So way too many turnovers. A key player for Tech, 6'9" true freshman Neo Avdalis of Greece. He in 34-28 as a starter committed a whopping 7 turnovers. So went just 1 for 4 on threes and registered a game worst plus-minus rating of minus 18. He did go 1 for 1 on twos and 3 for 4 on free throws and did also finish with 8 points and 7 assists. During Tech head coach Mike Young's post-game press conference on Saturday afternoon had this exchange.
Coach, you previously mentioned that Wake Forest was very aggressive with their game plan. Neo, with the first half mishaps and his ball handling struggles, he looked visibly frustrated. Armani,
no, he was visibly frustrated. You know, and as a young person, you better come on, you better grow up. All right, it's a big boy game. It's the Atlantic Coast Conference, and when something doesn't go your way, you can't drop your dauber and sulk. You gotta bring it. And I thought he did a better job of that in the second half. Made some good plays for us.
All right. 58 of Tech's 78 points came from just three players, Jalen Bedford, Amani Hansberry, and Ben Hammond. Tech's leading scorer was 6'4" UNLV transfer Jalen Bedford. He in 34-44 as a starter, had 25 points and 5 rebounds. He went 5 for 11 on threes and 4 for 7 on twos. Did go just 2 for 6 on free throws. 6'8" West Virginia transfer Amani Hansberry. He in 27-30 as a starter, had 19 points, 10 rebounds, including 4 offensive boards, 4 assists, and 2 steals. He did commit 6 turnovers, but he went 2 for 3 on threes, 5 for 6 on twos, and 3 for 3 on free throws. And 5'11" Ben Hammond, 26-50 off the bench, 14 points, 2 steals, 2 assists versus 1 turnover, and a team best plus-minus rating of +10. He went 1 for 2 on threes, 3 for 5 on twos, and 5 for 6 on free throws. Bedford, Hansberry, and Hammond went a combined 8 for 16 on threes. The rest of the Hokies went just 2 for 14 on threes. Next up for Virginia Tech, home to Stanford Wednesday night at 7. And also on Saturday was another win for George Mason. It, in this regular season, improved to 14-1 overall, including 2-0 in the A-10 with a 61-50 win over Rhode Island at Eagle Bank Arena in Fairfax, Virginia on Saturday. The Patriots at 14-1 are off to the best 15-game start to a regular season in program history. Next up for Mason at Fordham Wednesday night at 7. So the seasons for all 7 of the FBS teams of the Mid-Atlantic region now are done. 4 of the 7 teams made the postseason. We did have number 12 seeded James Madison's 51-34 loss at number 5 seeded Oregon on December 20th in the first round of the college football playoff. But Old Dominion, Virginia, and Navy each won its bowl game. Old Dominion concluded a 2025 season in which the Monarchs went 10-3 overall with a 24-10 win over South Florida in the Staff DNA Cure Bowl at Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida on December 17th. Number 19 Virginia concluded a 2025 season in which the Cavaliers went 11-3 overall with a 13-7 win over Missouri in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl at Everbank Stadium in Jacksonville, Florida on December 27th. And Navy concluded a 2025 season in which the midshipmen went 11-2 overall with a 35-13 win over Cincinnati in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl at a rainy Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium in Memphis, Tennessee this past Friday, January 2nd. The win gives Navy just the 3rd season with at least 11 wins in program history. The other 2 11-win seasons for Navy are 2015 and 2019. The win gives Navy 21 wins over the 2024 and 2025 seasons, a program record for wins over 2 consecutive seasons. Also, Navy improved to 7-1 over its last 8 bowl games. Bowl games are wildly unpredictable. Non-college football playoff bowl games have become increasingly meaningless, but Navy now is 7-1 over its last 8 bowl games. A part of that is Navy as a service academy not having the issue of players opting out of bowl games. And man, did that issue come into play in this win over Cincinnati? Cincinnati for this game was without a number of key players due to them having opted out of the game, including QB1 Brendan Sorsby. The game in the second quarter was tied at 7. Navy won the rest of the game 28-6. But my favorite aspect of the game was that 3 significant seniors for Navy ended their collegiate careers in nice ways. Navy quarterback Blake Horvath, he was named the most valuable player of the Liberty Bowl. He went 9 for 15 for 108 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. He took no sacks. He had 16 carries for 53 yards and a touchdown. Did have 2 fumbles, including a lost fumble, but Blake Horvath goes down as one of the best quarterbacks in Navy history. The GOAT of Navy quarterbacks is Roger Staubach, who won the Heisman Trophy for the 1963 season, but Horvath is right in the mix with the great Navy quarterbacks of the last 25 years. years. Ricky Dobbs, Keenan Reynolds, and Malcolm Perry. Also, Navy running back Alex Teska, he had 16 carries for 80 yards and a touchdown and had 1 reception for 2 yards on 1 target. And Navy slot back Eli Heidenreich, he had 10 carries for 62 yards and had 5 receptions for 64 yards and a touchdown on 10 targets. Blake Horvath, Alex Teska, Eli Heidenreich, 3 tremendous players for Navy over these last 2 seasons. Navy from 2003 through 2019 had 15 winning seasons in 17 seasons. Navy in the 2020 season went just 3-7 overall. Navy in the 2021 season went just 4-8 overall, although 11 of the Mid's 12 games that season were against teams that made bowl games, and Navy in the 2022 season went just 4-8 overall. And so Navy on December 11th, 2022 announced that Ken Niumatalolo was out as Navy head coach after 15-plus seasons. Look, I wondered whether getting rid of Niumatalolo was the right move. I think that a lot of people wondered whether that was the right move. Navy on December 11th, 2022, in the press release announcing that Niumatalolo was out as head coach, also named defensive coordinator Brian Newberry as interim head coach, and then Navy on December 19th, 2022, announced Newberry as the 40th head football coach in the history of the Naval Academy. Navy in the 2023 season went just 5-7 overall, marking a 4th consecutive losing season for the program. But Navy in the 2024 season went 10-3 overall, and Navy in this 2025 season went 11-2 overall. Brian Newberry is doing just fine as Navy head coach. The opening exchange of Newberry's postgame press conference on Friday evening was this exchange between Navy football insider Bill Wagner of CapitalGazette.com and Newberry.
The third 11-win season in program history. As you mentioned, 21 wins in 2 years is another record. Can you just talk about what that says about this senior class and what their, just total focus over the last 2 seasons?
Yeah, I've been saying it for a long time now. It's a special group. Can't say enough about the way that they go about their business, the way they do the little things. We have a saying in our program: "How you do anything is how you do everything," and not just within our program, but at the Naval Academy. The way these guys handle themselves within their company, on the yard, all those things. Bought into a vision and a plan, and worked their tails off and embraced the work, embraced the process. Talk about deserving victory all the time doesn't mean you necessarily get it, but to have that peace of mind that you did things the right way, you did everything within your control. These guys have done that, and couldn't be more proud. And they talked about leaving a legacy, and they've obviously done that. And they're leaving this program better than it was when they got here. There's no question about that. And again, I've been saying it for a long time. This is a special group. Got some great players, but there have been better people. And I'm extremely fortunate to be here, sitting up here with these guys and leading this program. And we've got a tremendous staff. We've got an amazing support staff, and we have a saying in our program: "Victory is produced and shared by all." And this is a culmination of a lot of things, and the result of a lot of hard work from a lot of people. Not just the guys up here on the stage, but our support staff, our training staff, strength conditioning, our recruiting staff, the student help. All those folks, work their tails off and believe in the plan and the vision, and the byproduct of that is the season that we had.
Yeah, for sure. And what a season it was. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Tuesday show, episode 1232. We'll have plenty for you on the Washington Commanders off the end of their 2025 season. Also on Tuesday's show, I'll talk Washington Capitals. The Caps are home to the Anaheim Ducks Monday night at 7. Have a great rest of your Monday, and I'll talk to you on Tuesday.
It does take time when you have a season like this where you're just frustrated, and if I had the hair like you, I'd pull it out, but it's not an option right now. So there's a lot to go through, but it starts with the players, and tomorrow is an important day to do that, and then we'll start, the the off-season process, which goes pretty lengthy.